Beneath the surface of our modern oceans lies a silence so deep it swallows time itself. But imagine if that silence could speak. It would tell us stories of ancient titans, creatures so vast and powerful they ruled the oceans long before the first human ever walked the earth. Before the pyramids, before the Ice Age, before the rise of Neanderthals, the seas were kingdoms of monsters. Today, whales may seem like the true giants of the deep. Yet, in the fossil record, they are dwarfed by behemoths whose jaws could crush metal, whose shadows could blot out the sun in shallow waters. What if I told you that once there existed a shark 3 times the size of a great white, that marine reptiles soared and swam in perfect synchronicity, blending grace and terror in every movement? That the ocean itself was once a battlefield, not for survival of the fittest species of fish, but for the very concept of dominance in evolution. Welcome to the Titans of the Sea, a journey into the forgotten age of prehistoric marine monsters. We'll descend into ancient oceans, explore fossil graveyards where these leviathans rest, and uncover the secrets of evolution that shaped not just them, but the fate of life on Earth. From the fearsome Megalodon and the serpent-like Mosasaurus, to the armored fish Dunkleosteus that ruled before dinosaurs even existed, each creature tells a story of survival, adaptation, and extinction. But here's the question that will guide us. If these sea monsters once dominated the planet, why did they vanish? And could something like them ever return? Because in the great timeline of life, extinction is never the end. It's merely an intermission. The ancient oceans, where evolution wrote its first drafts. Long before the first forests reached toward the sky, before dinosaurs thundered across continents, Earth was a planet of water. Nearly 500 million years ago, the seas were the center of all life. A vast, alien world where evolution experimented with every conceivable shape and survival strategy. In those early epochs, the oceans teemed not with fish as we know them, but with arthropods, bizarre, armored creatures with serrated claws and segmented shells. Among them was Anomalocaris, often called the first true predator in Earth's history, a shrimp-like hunter the size of a human, with grasping appendages and a circular mouth lined with teeth. It was the terror of the Cambrian seas, an ancient reminder that predation, the struggle between hunter and prey, began in the water. As time passed, the oceans changed. Around 400 million years ago, fish began to develop jaws, a seemingly small innovation that transformed the food chain forever. From these jawed pioneers came one of the earliest and most formidable marine predators, Dunkleosteus. Imagine a fish as long as a bus, covered in armored plates thicker than a medieval knight's shield. Its jaw could generate a bite force of over 8,000 pounds per square inch, strong enough to slice another armored fish clean in half. It didn't just eat, it crushed and devoured. Dunkleosteus ruled the Devonian seas, but evolution is relentless. As continents shifted and climates changed, new giants arose. The reptiles of the land began to return to the oceans, but they came back transformed. The rise of the marine reptiles. After the Permian extinction, the deadliest event in Earth's history, which wiped out over 90% of marine species, the oceans were empty, waiting for new rulers. Into that void swam the first great marine reptiles, the ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and mosasaurs. The ichthyosaurs, evolving around 250 million years ago, were the dolphins of their day, sleek, fast, and highly adapted for life in open water. Their bodies were shaped by the same evolutionary principles that later gave rise to modern whales. In fact, when paleontologists unearthed complete ichthyosaur fossils in the 19th century, many believed they had discovered the remains of dragons. But the true lords of the late Cretaceous oceans were the mosasaurs, enormous serpentine predators related to today's monitor lizards and snakes. With double-hinged jaws, shark-like tails, and eyes that could pierce the darkness, mosasaurs hunted everything from fish to other marine reptiles. The largest of them, Mosasaurus hoffmanni, stretched up to 17 meters long, longer than a city bus, and could crush turtles, ammonites, or even smaller mosasaurs with terrifying precision. It was, in many ways, the T-Rex of the sea. Fossils of these titans have been found from North America to Europe, from Morocco to Antarctica, suggesting that they dominated nearly every ocean on Earth. And their discovery has given us some of the most dramatic moments in paleontology, like the first Mosasaurus skeleton uncovered in a Dutch limestone quarry in the late 1700s, which helped shape our understanding of extinction itself. Before that, the concept that entire species could vanish forever was controversial, almost heretical. These creatures didn't just live, they redefined what it meant to be alive. The era of gigantic sharks. Then came the Cenozoic era, the age of mammals on land, but the age of monsters in the ocean. Roughly 23 million years ago, as whales evolved into the giants we know today, another predator evolved alongside them, the legendary Megalodon. This shark wasn't just large, it was colossal. Reaching up to 18 meters in length, it could weigh over 50 tons, with teeth the size of a human hand. A single bite could shatter the ribcage of a whale. To imagine Megalodon in action, picture a silent hunter cruising through warm, prehistoric seas. Its massive body casts a shadow over a pod of early baleen whales. It accelerates with terrifying speed, and in a single strike, the ocean turns red. The fossil record of Megalodon, mainly composed of teeth and vertebral columns, paints a picture of global dominance. From the Pacific to the Atlantic, its presence is found on every ancient coastline. And yet, about 3.6 million years ago, this apex predator vanished. Why? Some scientists point to global cooling during the Ice Age, which shrank its warm water habitat. Others suggest competition with the ancestors of great white sharks, smaller, faster, and more adaptable hunters. Still others argue that changes in whale populations, Megalodon's main prey, led to its downfall. Whatever the cause, the disappearance of Megalodon marked the end of an era, but not the end of fascination. Even today, conspiracy theories and sightings persist, fueled by the vast mystery of the deep ocean. After all, we've explored less than 5% of it. Could something still lurk below? The fossil graveyards of the deep. To truly understand these titans, we look not to myths, but to the rocks themselves. Fossil sites across the world act like time capsules, frozen windows into vanished ecosystems. In Kansas, the Niobrara Chalk Formation preserves an entire marine world from the Cretaceous period, where Mosasaurus and Pliosaurus fossils lie alongside the remains of ancient birds and fish. In Morocco's phosphate mines, scientists uncover hundreds of mosasaur bones every year, suggesting these seas were once as full of life as any coral reef today. Meanwhile, in the cliffs of England's Dorset coast, known as the Jurassic Coast, ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs lie buried in limestone, discovered by fossil hunters like Mary Anning, whose 19th-century discoveries forever changed paleontology. Each fossil is a fragment of a greater puzzle, one that reminds us that life on Earth has been through countless rises and falls. Titans have come and gone, but evolution endures. The story of the sea monsters isn't just about size or power. It's about adaptation. Every extinction paved the way for new forms of life to rise. The death of the Dunkleosteus opened space for sharks. The extinction of mosasaurs allowed whales to ascend. The ocean is a graveyard, but also a cradle. And as we dive deeper into the next chapters, we'll uncover what made these creatures thrive. and what led to their inevitable fall. Because to understand the monsters of the past, we must first understand the ocean itself, the age of the leviathans, when the oceans were ruled by giants. The story of Earth's prehistoric oceans is not merely a timeline of species, but a saga, an ever-shifting hierarchy of power. Every era crowned new kings and dethroned old ones. And in the water, power meant one thing: the ability to devour. Scene 1. The Devonian Terror. Dunkleosteus, the armored predator. Picture the Devonian Sea, 360 million years ago. The sunlight filters through murky green water, illuminating clouds of plankton drifting like underwater dust. Small fish dart nervously in the shallows, for they sense it. A shadow passes overhead. Not sleek, but heavy. A living tank. This is Dunkleosteus, perhaps the most fearsome fish to ever exist. Its skull alone is a puzzle of interlocking bone plates, a natural fortress. Where modern sharks have teeth, Dunkleosteus has sharpened, bony blades, self-sharpening with every bite. It doesn't chase, it ambushes. It lunges forward, opens its mouth, and in 1/20th of a second, generates one of the strongest bites in history. Shells, armor, bone, all meaningless before this force. Yet, for all its might, Dunkleosteus's rule was brief. The same traits that made it supreme, its size, its slow metabolism, its dependence on massive prey, became its downfall when the seas changed. Oxygen levels dropped, ecosystems collapsed, and the armored giant vanished. It's a reminder, in evolution, power without adaptability is a death sentence. Scene 2. The Return of the Reptiles. Fast forward to the Triassic period, roughly 250 million years ago. The world has just survived the Great Dying, the most catastrophic extinction in Earth's history. More than 9 out of 10 marine species are gone. But from the ruins, survivors emerge. On land, small reptiles begin to evolve new forms. Some take to the skies, others back to the water. The ichthyosaurs, whose name literally means fish lizard, become the first true masters of the Mesozoic seas. They evolve streamlined bodies, dorsal fins, and flippers that resemble those of modern dolphins. Nature, it seems, rediscovered the same aerodynamic shapes that minimize drag, an extraordinary example of convergent evolution. In fossil beds across Europe and North America, we find exquisitely preserved ichthyosaurs with unborn embryos still inside them. Unlike fish or reptiles that lay eggs, ichthyosaurs gave live birth, tail first, to avoid drowning their young. It's a subtle but profound sign of how evolution rewrites the rules of survival. The reptile that once crawled on land becomes something else entirely, a creature of speed and grace. But as the Triassic gave way to the Jurassic, new predators arose, and they did not share the ocean peacefully. Scene 3. The Serpents of the Deep, Plesiosaurs and Pliosaurs. Imagine a creature with the body of a turtle, the neck of a serpent, and the hunger of a crocodile. That's a Plesiosaurus. Some had necks so long, up to 7 meters, that they could curve gracefully through the water, striking at schools of fish with lightning precision. Others, like Cenozoic and Liopleurodon, grew shorter necks and gigantic skulls, built for brute force. These were called pliosaurs, apex predators capable of rivaling the Tyrannosaurus rex in size and strength. In the shallow seas of what is now Europe, these creatures clashed over prey and territory. A single bite from Liopleurodon could leave a crescent-shaped wound half a meter deep. Scientists estimate its bite force at nearly 30,000 newtons, more powerful than that of a saltwater crocodile. And yet, despite their monstrous appearance, plesiosaurs were graceful. Their 4 flippers worked in a unique flying motion underwater, the same hydrodynamic pattern later mirrored by sea turtles and penguins. nature once again repeating her most elegant designs. We know much of this from fossilized skeletons discovered in Britain's Jurassic coast, many by Mary Anning in the early 1800s. She was just a young woman walking the cliffs after storms, but her discoveries, plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, pterosaurs, rewrote the story of life on Earth. Her work helped spark the idea that entire worlds existed before ours. In her journals, she wrote of finding monsters turned to stone. She could never have imagined how right she was. Scene 4. The apex of power, Mosasaurus the sea tyrant. By the late Cretaceous, around 80 million years ago, the plesiosaurs had dwindled, and something even more terrifying had taken their place, the Mosasaurus. Unlike the elegant ichthyosaurs or the graceful plesiosaurs, Mosasaurus was pure aggression, a massive, muscular marine reptile descended from monitor lizards. It combined the serpentine flexibility of a snake with the crushing jaws of a crocodile. It could strike from below, using its tail like a jet engine. Its teeth, conical and recurved, were designed not to slice, but to hold. Once a prey item was in its mouth, escape was impossible. In Morocco's phosphate mines, paleontologists have found dozens of Mosasaurus fossils, often alongside the remains of other marine reptiles, sometimes with bite marks that match Mosasaurus teeth. Cannibalism? Possibly. Or perhaps the fossil beds are simply mass graves from a time when the seas themselves were violent. But what makes Mosasaurus remarkable is not just its size, which could reach 17 meters. It's its adaptability. It could live in both shallow coastal waters and open seas. Some evidence even suggests that females gave birth in protected lagoons, a behavior strikingly similar to modern whales. Then, 66 million years ago, in an instant, it all ended. A meteor struck the Yucatan Peninsula, igniting fires across the globe, blocking sunlight, and collapsing food chains. The dinosaurs perished. And in the ocean, the mosasaurs followed. Their extinction marked the close of one of the most extraordinary reigns in evolutionary history. Scene 5. Lessons from the fossil record. If we look closely, we can trace a repeating rhythm in these stories, a pattern written in stone and time. A creature rises to dominance, Dunkleosteus, Liopleurodon, Mosasaurus, Megalodon, and for millions of years nothing can challenge it. Then abruptly, it vanishes. Not through weakness, but through change. Because the ocean is never still. Its temperature, chemistry, and currents have shifted countless times. And each time entire ecosystems were swept away. What once was advantage becomes burden. What once was adaptation becomes extinction. It's humbling, really, to realize that the ocean, which seems eternal and unchanging, is in fact the most merciless force of all. It creates its own titans, and then erases them. As we look at their fossilized bones, we are reminded that survival is never guaranteed, not even for the greatest of creatures. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into the debates, the mysteries, and the controversies that still haunt scientists today. Were these monsters really as terrifying as we imagine? Did they evolve intelligence, complex behaviors, even communication? And could something like them, a new titan of the sea, ever rise again in our modern oceans? The answers may change how we see life on Earth itself. The debates beneath the waves, what we still don't know about the ocean's titans. Every fossil tells a story, but not always a complete one. The bones that reach us are fragments, survivors of time and chance. And between those fragments, vast mysteries remain. Even now, centuries after the first Mosasaurus skull was pulled from a limestone quarry, scientists are still debating what these prehistoric marine monsters really were, how they lived, hunted, and died. Were they mindless predators driven only by instinct, or complex beings capable of communication, strategy, and cooperation? Let's dive into the unknown. The case of the Megalodon. predator or scavenger. Few extinct creatures capture public imagination quite like Megalodon. Its teeth, triangular and serrated, can be found on beaches from Japan to Peru. They are tokens of awe, reminders of a shark so large it could swallow an orca whole. But within paleontology, Megalodon is at the center of one of the biggest debates. How did it really live? Traditional depictions, fueled by movies and documentaries, portray Megalodon as a relentless hunter, actively pursuing whales. Yet, some researchers challenge this, suggesting Megalodon may have also been a scavenger, feeding on carcasses that drifted across the seas. Others propose a middle ground, that Megalodon hunted opportunistically, targeting young whales or sick individuals, much like great white sharks do today. Then comes the question of its extinction. The dominant theory links it to global cooling around 3.6 million years ago, which reduced tropical habitats. But new isotopic analyses suggest that competition with smaller, more agile sharks, like Carcharodon carcharias, the great white, might have sealed its fate. These younger sharks could exploit colder waters and hunt smaller prey more efficiently. In a way, Megalodon fell victim to the same evolutionary story that doomed Dunkleosteus, the rise of agility over brute strength. Power, it seems, always gives way to precision. The plesiosaur controversy. What were those long necks for? Next, let's turn to one of the most elegant and perplexing creatures of prehistory, the plesiosaurus. With a body built like a sea turtle and a neck that could stretch up to 7 meters, it looks like something torn between a dream and a nightmare. But scientists have long puzzled over one question. Why such a long neck? Early theories suggested that plesiosaurs used their necks like cranes, striking swiftly at fish without disturbing the water. Later, biomechanical models, however, showed that moving such a long neck underwater would have been cumbersome, even risky. The drag alone would slow the creature to a crawl. Recent studies using CT scans and computer simulations suggest something even stranger. The neck wasn't for quick strikes, but for slow stealth. The plesiosaur may have approached schools of fish or squid with its head extended far ahead of its body, allowing it to ambush prey before they sensed the massive torso following behind. Other scientists propose that the neck may have been a display feature used in mating rituals or dominance contests, like the elongated feathers of a peacock. But the truth remains buried. No fossil can record behavior. We can only infer and imagine. Still, there's something poetic about the plesiosaur's mystery. Its graceful form, preserved in stone, continues to haunt the edges of myth, from Scottish lochs to the collective memory of humankind. Perhaps that's why when people glimpse ripples on a foggy lake, they think of Nessie. We may have forgotten the plesiosaur's name, but not its shape. The mosasaur's evolutionary puzzle. When scientists first studied Mosasaurus, they struggled to place it in the tree of life. It wasn't quite a fish, nor a crocodile, nor a dinosaur. Only later did researchers discover that its closest modern relatives are monitor lizards and snakes. But here lies another mystery. How did such a land-dwelling creature evolve so perfectly for marine life? Fossil evidence shows a fascinating transition. Early mosasaurs had limbs halfway between feet and flippers, suggesting they first hunted in shallow coastal waters. Over time, they evolved streamlined bodies, internal nostrils for underwater breathing, and tails that functioned like shark fins. Some paleontologists even believe mosasaurs could regulate their body temperature, allowing them to survive in colder seas, a rare ability for reptiles. If true, this would make them warm-blooded, blurring the line between reptile and mammal. But perhaps the most chilling discovery comes from a fossil in Jordan. A pregnant mosasaur, her skeleton intertwined with the tiny bones of unborn young. It suggests that, like whales and ichthyosaurs, they gave live birth in the ocean. Not just monsters, but mothers. This revelation forces us to rethink our image of these creatures. They weren't merely engines of destruction. They were part of a vast living system of birth, death, and rebirth. They raised their young, adapted to changing seas, and flourished for millions of years until the asteroid ended their world. Ancient whales, the new titans. When the mosasaurs vanished, a new dynasty began. Not reptiles, but mammals. Fossil records from Egypt's Fayum Depression reveal Basilosaurus, one of the earliest fully aquatic whales. Despite its name, meaning king lizard, Basilosaurus was not a reptile, but a mammal over 15 meters long, with a sinuous, snake-like body. And in its stomach, the bones of smaller whales and fish. It hunted like the mosasaurs before it, using intelligence and social coordination rather than brute power. Over millions of years, Basilosaurus gave rise to the baleen whales and orcas of today, proof that the ocean, though it changes its rulers, never abandons the throne of giants. Some scientists even call whales the heirs of the mosasaurs. They occupy the same ecological niche, intelligent, dominant, highly adapted predators of the sea. In a sense, the ocean never stopped creating titans. It simply changed the blueprint. Could something like them return? Every few years, a blurry video or sonar anomaly stirs speculation, a shadow beneath the waves too large to identify. The human imagination leaps. Could the Megalodon still exist? Scientifically, the answer is no. The deep ocean cannot sustain a predator of that size unseen. A creature like Megalodon would require enormous amounts of food, and its toothy evidence would litter modern coasts. And yet, the mystery persists. Perhaps because it touches something ancient within us, a primal memory of vulnerability before nature's immensity. Our ancestors looked across vast waters and saw danger, gods, monsters. Today, even with submarines and satellites, the ocean remains mostly unexplored. Over 80% of it has never been mapped in detail. If we've learned anything from the fossil record, it's that life is relentless. When the conditions are right, when the oceans warm, when the ecosystems shift, new giants emerge. Not necessarily the same species, but the same spirit of adaptation. The age of the titans may be gone, but the process that made them never stopped. The unfinished story. In the quiet halls of natural history museums, these creatures lie still, bones assembled into perfect postures, jaws open in eternal threat. But they are not just relics. They are messages from the deep time of Earth. They remind us that evolution is not a straight line. It's a spiral, patterns recurring in new forms, each echoing the last. The armored Dunkleosteus became the shark, the mosasaur became the whale, and one day, perhaps, something will take their place. The ocean, after all, forgets nothing. In the next and final sections, we'll rise from the depths, not just to summarize, but to reflect. Because behind every ancient monster lies a mirror, a reflection of the same instincts, fears, and survival drives that still shape humanity today. What the sea monsters teach us about ourselves. It's tempting to view the age of prehistoric marine titans as a story that belongs entirely to the past, a chapter long closed. But in truth, the rise and fall of these creatures mirror something far closer to home. They reveal patterns not only in evolution, but in us. When we look at Dunkleosteus, Mosasaurus, or Megalodon, we're not just looking at fossils. We're looking at lessons written in bone, lessons about dominance, survival, adaptation, and loss. The illusion of invincibility. Every one of these oceanic giants once ruled the world. Each stood at the peak of its ecosystem, a perfect predator, unmatched and unchallenged. And yet, they all vanished. Not in an epic battle, not in fire or flood, but quietly, almost invisibly, undone by the slow shifting of currents, temperature, and time. It's easy to think that power guarantees survival, but nature teaches otherwise. The mightiest fall not because they are defeated, but because they cannot change. In that sense, Dunkleosteus is a reflection of empires, corporations, and even civilizations that collapse under their own weight, too rigid to adapt when the environment around them transforms. The same force that shaped evolution shapes human history. Adapt or disappear. Adaptation is the real power. If the ocean is a teacher, adaptation is its gospel. Consider the ichthyosaurs. They began as land-dwelling reptiles and, over millions of years, transformed into streamlined swimmers, perfectly suited for a world of perpetual motion. They didn't fight the ocean, they became part of it. That's not just a biological transformation, it's a philosophical one. We, too, live in a world that changes faster than we can fully comprehend, socially, technologically, climatically. Like the ichthyosaurs, our survival depends not on strength, but on flexibility. Humans are often compared to apex predators, dominant, intelligent, unstoppable. Yet our species' true gift is not in domination, but in adaptation, the ability to learn, to rebuild, to evolve beyond what the moment demands. Just as early marine reptiles learned to breathe differently, hunt differently, live differently, we must learn to think differently in a changing world. The balance between creation and destruction. One of the most haunting truths the ocean teaches is balance. Every time life grows too large, too dominant, the planet finds equilibrium. Extinctions, catastrophic as they are not acts of cruelty, but resets. They make room for new life, new ideas, new beginnings. In that sense, extinction is not just a biological event. It's a metaphor for the cycles within our lives. We all experience personal extinctions, endings of relationships, careers, ways of thinking. And though they feel catastrophic in the moment, they clear the path for transformation. The death of the Mosasaurus made way for the rise of whales. The end of the Ice Age birthed human civilization. Destruction, in nature and in life, is never the end. It is the seed of renewal. The depths within us. Why are we so fascinated by sea monsters? Maybe because deep down we sense they're more than just creatures of the past. They represent something primal, a fear that still swims within the human psyche. The ocean has always been a mirror of the subconscious, vast, dark, unexplored. To descend into it is to face the unknown, both out there and within ourselves. The monstrous forms that once roamed the seas are echoes of our own hidden instincts, our hunger, our fear, our drive to survive. When we stare into the open jaws of Megalodon, we're staring into evolution's reflection, into the raw, untamed force that made us who we are. The same force that once ruled the depths now fuels the human heart. We've simply traded teeth for tools, fins for cities, and instincts for intellect. But the current that drives us, the will to survive and to dominate, remains the same. The ocean's memory and humanity's future. The ocean remembers everything. Beneath its surface lie records of every triumph and extinction, every mutation and migration. Fossils buried in limestone and silt are its archives, silent yet unyielding. When we drill into the seabed, studying ancient isotopes or plankton fossils, we are reading the diary of Earth itself. It tells us how the climate once changed, how ecosystems adapted, and how fragile the balance truly is. And today we're writing a new chapter in that diary, one that future species may one day read in our fossilized remains. Because for all our intelligence, we are not exempt from the same laws that governed Megalodon or Mosasaurus. Climate change, pollution, and the warming seas are the new meteorites we have summoned ourselves. The question is, will we adapt, or will we join the long list of rulers the ocean has erased? Resilience, the thread that connects all life. Despite everything, every extinction, every collapse, life always returns. That's the final, unbreakable lesson. After the great dying, new forms emerged. After the meteor, mammals rose. After every ending, something unexpected took shape. Life's resilience is not measured in dominance, but in persistence. Perhaps that's why whales, the modern titans of the sea, are so deeply symbolic to us. They are reminders that power and gentleness can coexist, that intelligence, not aggression, may be the ultimate form of survival. In the haunting songs of humpbacks, we hear echoes of evolution's oldest melody, the song of endurance. And maybe, in their calm movement through the deep, we glimpse what the mosasaurs never achieved, peace within power. Reflections for our time. So what do these ancient monsters teach the modern human, the creature that now dominates both land and sea? They remind us that the story of life is cyclical, not linear, that extinction is not failure, but transformation, that adaptation, not domination, determines destiny, and they whisper a warning that every empire, every species, every titan of its time believes it will last forever, until the tide turns. But there's hope in that truth, because if nature can rebuild after the annihilation of 90% of its species, then perhaps humanity, too, can reinvent itself, not as conquerors of the earth, but as stewards of its next age. The eternal sea. When you stand at the edge of the ocean, waves crashing at your feet, remember this: every drop of water once flowed through worlds long vanished. Every tide carries the memory of creatures that no longer exist, the same ocean that birthed the first fish, the first reptile, the first mammal, still breathes today. And it watches us. Perhaps the titans of the sea never truly disappeared. Perhaps they live on, not as beasts of bone and scale, but as stories, lessons, and symbols that shape how we see our place in the grand continuum of life. The ocean remains vast, mysterious, and alive, a mirror of the unknown. And just as it created the monsters of the past, it is quietly shaping the creatures of tomorrow. Maybe one day new titans will rise again. The only question is, will we be here to see them? Echoes of the deep. What remains? After the titans fall, from the armored Dunkleosteus of the Devonian to the colossal Megalodon of the Miocene, every epoch of life beneath the waves has given birth to its own titans and taken them away. But as we reach the surface of this journey, one truth becomes clear. These monsters were never just creatures of the sea. They were reflections of Earth itself, mirrors of the planet's strength, change, and fragility. The ocean is not a passive backdrop in the story of evolution. It's an active force, a sculptor that shapes life through endless trial and renewal. It built giants, then took them back, and in their place, it made new ones. The eternal rhythm of evolution. If you trace the fossil record, a rhythm emerges, one that repeats like the beating of a cosmic heart. Life expands, it dominates. Then it vanishes. But the pattern doesn't end. From the ruins, new life always arises, different, but connected. Dunkleosteus gave way to sharks, Mosasaurus gave way to whales. The extinction of one era fuels the creation of the next. In this rhythm, we find a reflection of humanity's story, our rise from fragile primates to global architects. Like the ancient leviathans, we've conquered, adapted, and reshaped our environment. Yet, like them, our survival is bound to the forces we cannot control, because even the strongest species cannot command the ocean or time. Our place in the line of titans. When you look at a fossilized tooth of Megalodon, you are holding both the memory of power and the inevitability of change. That tooth once belonged to a creature that ruled the seas without rival. Yet now, its entire existence is contained in your palm, silent, still, and ancient. That silence is humbling. It asks us, what will remain of us when our time has passed? We often imagine our cities, our machines, our technology as proof of permanence. But in a few million years, they too will fade. What will survive are traces, fossils of humanity, evidence that we once ruled, once dreamed, once believed we were invincible, just like the Mosasaurs, just like the Plesiosaurs, just like every titan before us. The mystery that endures. And yet there's something profoundly comforting about that, because while species vanish, life itself endures. It transforms, it adapts, it rises again, stronger, stranger, and more beautiful than before. The ocean is proof of that resilience. It remembers everything, yet forgives everything. Every tide that recedes returns again. Every extinction gives way to evolution. Every silence hides the hum of something new being born. When we gaze across the surface of the sea, we're not just looking at water, we're looking at a history billions of years old. The same waves that lap against the shore once carried the first bacteria, the first fish, the first breath of life itself. And perhaps, in the depths we've yet to explore, something unimaginable is already evolving. A future titan, waiting for its age to come. A question for the future. So as this story ends, another begins, because the great question remains. If the ocean could create monsters like Megalodon, Mosasaurus, and Liopleurodon, what could it create next? Will new titans rise from the warming seas, shaped by the very changes we've unleashed? Or will humanity itself become a relic, a brief flicker in the grand rhythm of evolution? Perhaps millions of years from now, another intelligent species will walk the earth. They'll find our bones, our buildings, our machines, and wonder what kind of creatures once ruled their world. They'll ask the same questions we ask today. Who were these beings? Why did they vanish? And what did they learn from the giants before them? Closing reflection. The story of the titans of the sea is not just about extinction. It's about continuity. Each wave that crashes on the shore carries whispers from the past, of power, of loss, of renewal. So the next time you stand beside the ocean, listen. You might hear echoes of the ancient world, the songs of whales that replaced mosasaurs, the crash of predators that once split the sea in two. Remember, the monsters may be gone, but their legacy endures, not just in fossils, but in us. Because we, too, are creatures of evolution, born from the same oceans that birthed them. And as long as we learn, adapt, and remember, we carry forward the story of life, a story older than the stars above and deeper than the sea below. Final words. Do we really know everything that once swam beneath the waves? Or are the bones we've found merely whispers, hints of creatures and ages still hidden beneath the deep? One thing is certain, the ocean's story isn't over. It's still being written, and somewhere, in its darkest depths, the next chapter waits. If this journey through Earth's forgotten oceans stirred your imagination, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us again as we uncover more ancient secrets, one mystery at a time.